So we've had a summer without our usual membership event. And in fact, doing this film, this video, is one way that we wanted to share some of the successes that you, our members, have made possible this past year. And again, it's not the same as being with you, but it is kind of cool to be able to see some of the places and some of the footage of the places that you've helped to protect, some of the programs you've helped to make possible, even in this era of the pandemic. There are 4 major areas of our work: lands, trails, water, and education. Coastal Rivers has been a land trust for several decades now, setting aside important land for people to use for wildlife, places to go for hikes, places for education for our local schools, and ultimately protecting those places protects the water quality.
The Pienkowski Project is particularly exciting to me because it's in my neighborhood. It's a trail I love. We were missing some critical pieces to the property, one of which was the area along the road that you traverse to get to the property. That's kind of important. And then another little keyhole piece where it connects to the marsh on the south side. And this recent purchase has been to acquire those 2 properties, which just sort of ties up the whole bundle. And this is a pretty incredible property because it juts out into a beautiful salt marsh that's really rich in wildlife and has a lot of bearing on water quality in the region. There are a lot of feeder streams that feed into it, and then it in turn drains into the Sheepscot River. It's a really important area to protect from development. I'm a runner, and that's my daily route. I run by there along the marsh, and I see kingfishers and herons and wading birds in the migrating seasons. I see deer and turkeys. It's a beautiful area that's got a lot going on.
Just to give a sense of context as to where we are, we're right here at Salt Bay Farm. Down here, the lighthouse, Pemaquid Peninsula. Booth Bay Peninsula here, Damariscotta River, Pemaquid River right through there. So we've got Pemaquid Pond, Bisky Pond, right down through, following right out. So just as we connected here with our partnership on what we call RiverLink, linking up at big scale so that you can now walk 5 miles from Dodge Point down to McKay Road, we're working to do the same thing on the Pemaquid Peninsula. So if you see a bear or a moose down on the tip of the peninsula, that bear or moose, for its success, depends on intact forest habitat in the whole peninsula. And similarly, water quality in both these river systems depends on the intact forest habitat. And that's what we're working to do, and we're chipping away. You can see in just the last year, additions, you can see some of the properties that we've acquired and some of the properties that we're working to acquire right now. So this big block here, Kastner Creek Community Forest, piece down here linking the Brackett property, which links Crooked Farm Preserve to Sproul Preserve. And we're making inroads throughout with the intent of hooking it up for ongoing permanent wildlife habitat that also protects water quality and creates new trail opportunities. So everything we do really starts backward from water quality. So our 2 parent organizations, we just merged, Pemaquid Watershed Association and Damariscotta River Association, both focused on the health of our waterways. As you see in talking to Dick and Emily McKenzie, who are 2 of our star volunteers and who have been essential this summer of the pandemic when many other volunteers who aren't a couple like they are haven't been able to do the usual work together. They're out taking samples at multiple points along the Damariscotta River estuary, and that data has now been collected for decades. So we get to see the changes in what's happening and learn from that. And again, in that regional context, it means even more.
All right, put the time down.
Yeah, perfect.
13:35.
So we're testing for How cloudy is the water? What's the level of nitrogen? How much oxygen is in the water? And what does that tell us about what's happening on the land? The other piece on the water quality monitoring is just a very practical kind of monitoring that we do. Swim beaches are not okay to swim in if bacteria levels are too high. Yet local towns often don't have the resources to take on the monitoring of those beaches themselves. So through your support as members, we're able to go out and monitor 3 swim beaches throughout the towns that we work in. And that makes it possible for people to swim there throughout the year, and if there is a bacterial contamination problem, to identify it, to address it, and get people back swimming quickly again.
One of the things that can have the biggest impact on lakes and ponds is the introduction of invasive aquatic species. And there are many lakes and ponds in New England that have been invaded by these plants, and it's not pretty. Once they get established, they form really dense mats that are really hard to get rid of. And they can spread, just little bits of plant can grow into large plants. They crowd out native plant species, and they create poor habitat for fish and other aquatic animals. One of the big ways that these plants can be spread from water body to water body is on boats. In order to keep that from happening, we participate in the Courtesy Boat Inspection Program through Maine Lakes Society. And all this entails is we have a friendly volunteer who hangs out at the boat landing, and when people come to launch their boat, they will approach the boater and engage them and talk to them about invasive plants and offer to look over their boat. And most people know the drill. They're pretty familiar with it. And I would say that most people are pretty careful about practices with their boat. They know clean, drain, and dry when they are going from one water body to another. People know that the inspectors are there to keep the ponds and lakes clean for everybody. I think we have something like 48 miles of trails. They're all a little bit different. Some are quiet wooded paths. Some have sweeping vistas on the river. Some are good for cross-country skiing or snowshoeing. Some favorites in this area, I think, are Dodge Point and Laverna Preserve, which is spectacular. It's always really exciting to me to see people out using the trails and the preserves. I see them used in many different ways. Of course, there's a lot of people just out for a walk. You see couples, you see families, you see friends. I often see people just by themselves having a few moments of quiet, peace and quiet to themselves. Particularly at Salt Bay Farm and here at Round Top, you see families having picnics at the picnic tables. In the wintertime, you see people snowshoeing and cross-country skiing. We've heard from so many that being outdoors, being on the trails has really been a saving grace for them in this really difficult time. People around here know how to have a good time in the outdoors, and they know where to go. It's really fun to see. One exciting project in the works is the extension of our A.D.A. Accessible Trail. So we finished the Accessible Trail 2 years ago now, and it has just been a tremendous success. It is amazing to see the people out using that trail, people using walkers. I see little toddlers on scooters, learning how to ride a bike. These are uses that you wouldn't see on your average wooded track. It's an 8-foot wide trail. It's gently graded, it's smooth, and many people who otherwise couldn't be outside on a trail are out there enjoying views of the river, rolling hay fields, and it's just a beautiful thing to see, and I think it's meant a lot to the community.
The A.D.A. Trail from Round Top to Whaleback State Historic Site has been received so well in the community. It's been an absolute pleasure to see the number of people who use the trail, the people with all abilities. It doesn't matter what their ability is, they're able to use the trail. And I'm really excited. The River Trail extension which will run from Round Top here, the trailhead at Round Top, over to the Nature Center. It'll be a 1.3 mile, fully compliant ADA accessible trail that will run along the Damariscotta River. It would be the longest ADA accessible trail in the Mid-Coast region. The more we can do to get people outdoors, enjoying, the environment, nature, the better it is for everyone.
One of the programs that's been affected the most by COVID, I would say, is our education program, because since we haven't been able to do programs in person, we've had to get creative. And this has meant doing a lot of online programs. This has meant, since we couldn't go ahead with our summer camp, we came up with the idea of putting together boxes or kits for campers to bring home. And the kits are filled with things to encourage kids to get outdoors and explore and learn about nature. This is a time when people have been indoors more and in front of their screens, and it's just another way to get people outside and out in nature. There you are. Got it.
And there's a cricket. He likes me. He wants to stay on me.
Look, there's the cricket.
So there were activity cards, there were magnifying glasses, there was a bug net. I bought one of these kits, and my son, who's 11, was completely psyched. It was a kind of slow summer, and summer camp for him also couldn't go forward. So having that box, having him go out and catch butterflies, he came back and he said, "Dad, check this one out." And he looked it up and learned what it was and was really excited about it.
Pileated woodpecker.
See, this is the bird that I was thinking of.
So one of the reasons why we do a lot of programming for young people is that we recognize they're going to become the stewards of this place and many other places. And so speaking to their needs and their interests and getting them outdoors and feeling comfortable and building skills is super important for us. And we already see the successes of that. We already have kids who were in our programs, and they were at 7, 8, and 9, and now they're in college and beyond, and they're teaching, and they're in natural resources management kinds of programs. And so we do know it works, and we're excited about that. And Camp in a Box was a success, so that was very exciting. Just knowing that even though we couldn't hold Camp Mommy Chug this year, we were able to encourage kids to get outside, maybe with their families, do some kinds of exploration, and have in their hands some really useful tools that are great for exploring. So, a hand lens, a loop that's going to last for a long time. And looking forward into the fall, we're putting together a number of resources for teachers and students. And one of them is a whole selection of teacher trainings. Another is a selection of classes that teachers can involve their students with through me. We need to stay safe, but we can also make a very successful program in which kids are learning about wild edibles, or learning about Wabanaki skills and culture, or examining fossils, and taking apart owl pellets if they're doing a bird program. So there's a lot that can be done, and we can do this through a number of means now, just because of the ease of working with online opportunities.
We look forward to the chance to celebrate together again soon. In the meantime, thank you so much for everything that you do for coastal rivers.